Hi, my name is Joseph Hill, and I'm a molecular biologist at Michigan State. I study teeny, tiny things like genes, DNA, and proteins, and I try to understand how they make life work. One thing that happens on this tiny molecular level is viruses. Most of you, I assume, have probably heard of viruses by now, but maybe you don't know what a virus is, other than something that makes you sick. Today, I'm going to briefly go over what a virus is, how they work, why they make us sick, and how they've actually helped humanity in the past and the present. Before I can explain what a virus is, I need to make sure we all understand what our bodies and life itself is made of. If we imagine our body is like a house, a Lego house, for example, you can break the house up into smaller pieces. Breaking off a wall, it'd kind of be like removing your arm from your body. It's a big piece, and you can recognize it for what it is. That's an arm, that's a piece of a wall. But if we try to keep breaking down this wall into smaller and smaller pieces, eventually we will get to a single Lego brick. If we break that Lego brick, it's not going to work anymore. We can't really put it back together and build a wall again with it. In our bodies, this smallest part that we can't break without destroying it is called a cell. And our body is made of billions and trillions of cells. Each one of them is alive, and they're very small. So if we want to draw a cell, let's say it's about this big. Now let's talk about germs. We use the word germs or bugs to talk about a big group of things that all make us sick. It's a general word that we use, kind of like how we use the word food to mean a whole lot of different things we eat. So there's lots of different kinds of germs, but most of them fit into two main groups. The first is bacteria or microbes, and the second being viruses. If you start with bacteria and look at it, it's a living thing, but its entire body is made of just one cell. And this cell is a lot smaller than our cells. It's about this big in comparison. So bacteria are alive, and sometimes they make poisons that make us sick, or they live beside or even inside our cells, and that can make us sick. Bacteria cause diseases like tuberculosis, pneumonia, cholera, Lyme disease, whooping cough, tetanus, and many different kinds of infections. Like, if you've ever gotten a cut on your hand and it starts to swell up and get infected, that's usually some type of bacteria. When we take antibiotic medicine, that kills bacteria, not viruses. Now, antibiotics have done an amazing job preventing a lot of these bacterial illnesses, but since bacteria are alive and constantly changing and growing, some have found a way to be resistant to antibiotics because we've used them probably too much. Now, bacteria aren't all bad. There's actually trillions of bacteria that live on your skin and inside your body. They're really important for keeping you healthy. For example, if you've ever heard of probiotics, those are bacteria and yeast that help with digesting food. Now, the other type of germ, viruses. Viruses are also small, much smaller than our cells, and even smaller than bacteria cells. They're about this big, and they are everywhere. In the water you drink, the air you breathe, literally everywhere, in bigger numbers than you could ever imagine. Now, they can be so small because they only have the bare minimum to work. It's like comparing a unicycle, which is the virus, to a motorcycle, which is the cell. The virus has just enough to work, like a unicycle basically just has a wheel so that it can roll. Well, some people say that viruses aren't really alive because of this. They're missing so many pieces. Compared to a cell, they can't grow or make more of themselves unless they use a cell. They need to get inside and basically steal the supplies and equipment of the cell to make more virus. So they don't have much, but what are the few things that viruses do have? Well, there's many different kinds of viruses, and they're made of just a few parts. First, they have some kind of case or shell. It's kind of like the body of the virus. Different viruses use different materials for this case, and they can take different shapes. Coronavirus, for example, looks like this. Corona just means crown, and these little bumps all around the outside kind of look like a crown, so they named it coronavirus. All these different case shapes do the same thing. They're protecting the other important piece on the inside. So what is that? Instructions. DNA or RNA, which are the instructions the virus uses to make more of itself. It's really like a recipe book that tells you how to make something. If the virus can get that inside a cell, then it will basically force the cell to follow those instructions and make more viruses. So the last main piece a virus has is like a key, which is a way to get inside the cell. On this really, really small level, the size of cells and viruses and DNA, the most important thing is shape. A cell can't really think and decide and make decisions about where to go or what to do. Instead, everything happens when things bump into each other and fit together, like how a key will fit into a lock, and that will let you open a door. So, to get a virus inside your cell, it has certain shapes on the outside of the virus, made from proteins, and those have to bump into and match other shapes on the outside of your cell. That's like the lock and the key. Once that happens, your cell will actually pull the virus inside, and it can then take control of the cell to make more viruses. It can do this because one part of those instructions the virus has is a way to basically stop the cell from resisting this takeover. So I like to use analogies and metaphors, and to explain it in a different way, let's imagine one of your cells is a factory. It makes something. Bicycles, bread, pencils, cars, iPhones, whatever. To make these, the factory needs to communicate with other places, take in the supplies to build, make the instructions to actually build the thing, follow those instructions, and make more iPhones or whatever, and then send out that product when it's made, making sure things stay clean and organized inside the factory. So as you can see, there's a lot of different people in the factory with many different jobs, and they all need to work together to keep things running smoothly. Now, if we're imagining a cell as being a whole factory, then a virus would be, let's say, just one robot, one that can walk around like a person. This robot only has a couple of things, like a virus. He found a key to the building, or maybe he knows a way to hack in. He has the instructions for how to make more robots just like him, and he's got a ray gun or some kind of weapon. This robot comes into the factory and threatens everyone and forces them to stop making their iPhones or whatever and start making more robots. And he wants that to be the only thing that's done. No more worrying about taking in new supplies, cleaning the floor, making sure everything's organized. Just everyone stop and make more robots. The whole factory does only that. In fact, it makes so many robots, it uses up all the supplies, and it starts to fill up the factory with these robots. So much so that the walls burst open and the factory falls apart, spilling robots everywhere. Now each of these robots can then go out and go to another factory and take it over and over and over again. And that's all the virus does. It can't eat food, it can't make its own energy, it can't even make more of itself unless it takes over a cell and hijacks all of those supplies and equipment. And all it has the cell do is make more of itself to repeat this over and over again, each time killing the cell that it infected. And that's why you get sick, because your cells start to die and your body sees the virus and tries to fight back by giving you a fever and other things like inflammation that make you feel bad. And a lot of times, your body can defeat the virus and you get better. After your body has seen a virus, It's like making a wanted poster for that robot. Your body knows what it looks like, and it knows it's a bad guy. So the next time your body sees that virus, it can start to fight it right away, rather than waiting until it takes over a cell to realize something bad's happening. And actually, that's what a vaccine is, too. You take a dead virus or a bacteria so it's not harmful anymore, or even just a piece of one of them, and you put that inside your body so that your body could recognize it and go, hey, this is something bad. I need to watch out for this in the future. That way, whenever one of those viruses or bacteria get inside your body in the future, your body can very quickly start to fight it off, rather than wait until it starts to do damage. And that's all immunity really is. It's this wanted poster. It's this system to say, hey, that's bad. Let's take care of it right away. So if that's the case, why do people still get the common cold and flu every year? Shouldn't they get immunity after they get it the last year or the year before? Those are viral diseases, and there's a few different reasons. First, the common cold, that's, again, it's just a general word we use. It's actually caused by over 100 different kinds of viruses. They all give you the same symptoms. In fact, some of the viruses that cause the common cold are types of coronavirus. There's also several different kinds of flu, and the flu is really easily able to rapidly change its shape so it can get around your body's defenses. It's like a criminal that you have a wanted poster for, but they got plastic surgery, or they're wearing a disguise or a mask to hide their identity. The viruses change, and then your body doesn't recognize them as being bad anymore. So the flu and common cold are still around, and they can make you sick every year, because each time it's actually a slightly different virus making you sick. So it's not that you weren't immune, there's just too many different things that you need to get immunity to. And that's why we can't just make, one lifetime vaccine for all different kinds of flus and common colds. It's just a big group of many different things. So remember how we talked about the shapes on the outside of your cells and on the outside of a virus, and how they need to match in order for the virus to get inside? Like a lock and a key. All living things are, different. They have different shapes on the outsides of their cells. It's basically like how all the different houses on your street have different locks, and all the different units in your apartment building. The viruses can only infect a cell if their key matches. So most viruses only infect one kind of organism, like a human or a cow or corn. And there's so many viruses that basically every different kind of living thing has some kind of virus that can infect it. Now, because viruses are always changing, they can sometimes jump from an animal to a human or between two different animals. You may have heard about bird flu, swine flu, or how this new coronavirus probably came from bats. This happens because viruses are always mutating and changing, and sometimes the shape of their key changes so that now it fits the lock on our human cells and is able to infect us. So what makes this coronavirus worse than, say, the flu? Well, there's a couple of things going on here. The first being that it's just new. No one's body has seen this before, so we don't have immunity. We don't have that wanted poster to tell our body's defenses that this is a bad guy and we need to fight it right away. Because of this, most people are able to be infected. With things like the common cold or the flu, some people have immunity, and they act like a dead end for the spread. But when everyone can get it, there's no more dead ends, and it can just keep spreading from person to person to person. Another dangerous part of this virus is that there's a long incubation time. That's the time it takes from when the virus first gets inside your body and when you start to feel sick. It's the time when the virus is just starting to go in and take over cells, but it hasn't gone far enough that your body is defending and making you feel sick. You might could think about it like the delicious smell of food that's cooking. You can smell the food, but it's not finished cooking and you can't eat it yet. When a virus has a very short incubation time, it gets into your body and very quickly makes you sick. This lets you know that you're sick and you can avoid passing it on to other people by staying at home or even just being more careful about coughing and touching things. Now, with a long incubation time, like this coronavirus, is up to 2 weeks, you can have the virus in your body for a long time and just pass it around from person to person without ever knowing, because you don't feel sick yet. And this virus is able to do that. You're contagious. You're able to pass the virus on even before you feel sick. So, after all of that, you probably think viruses can only be bad. I mean, they're literally parasites. All they do is infect your cells, make more of themselves. How could that help anyone but themselves? Well, there's a few different ways. The instructions inside a virus, the DNA or the RNA, well, the way some viruses work, they take those instructions and they put them inside our genome, which is the giant set of instructions our cells need to do everything that they do to keep us alive. Usually, this is just one step in the virus's life cycle. It sneaks the instructions into our big book of instructions and then uses that to make more of itself. And sometimes it's actually even worse for us than that. Putting those instructions into our genome can cause mutations or cancer or other bad things. But every once in a while, it actually does something good. You can think of it like adding a single line or a single item to a recipe, like, say, 3 tablespoons of salt. It's a good bit of salt. Probably ruin a lot of foods, like how adding a virus to our genome usually will cause bad things to happen. But you can imagine every once in a while, there's a recipe that would be a whole lot better with 3 tablespoons of salt added to it. So just like with this recipe example, there have been changes to our genome, as well as other animals, that have helped. For example, we think the placenta, the thing that's around the baby during pregnancy, needs a gene that came from an ancient virus. In fact, a whole lot of our genome actually comes from ancient viruses. So a lot of us is actually made of old virus. It's like inheriting a cookbook, and the person you got it from has written in a lot of notes on the side and scratched out and made changes to the recipes. So another useful thing that we can take from viruses is using them as tools. So there's lots of different types of genetic diseases, and these can a lot of times be cured if you can find a way to do gene therapy. And one of the best ways to do gene therapy is to take a virus, remove the parts of it that make it spread uncontrollably, and you just keep the part that lets it get into the cell really easily. So basically, kind of the key in the case. And instead of having the normal virus recipe inside, that's where you add the gene therapy. So this can then go in, deliver the gene therapy, and make people better. Another cool use for viruses is a way to fight off bacteria that cause illnesses. Now here, we mostly use antibiotics to kill bacteria, but there are some viruses that only attack bacteria. They leave our cells alone. These are called bacteriophages, and they look really cool, kind of like spiders, and they basically have a needle that they pierce the bacteria with. So some countries, instead of using antibiotics, they actually make mixtures of bacteriophages, and they give these to people as medicine to kill these bacteria. The bacteriophage attack the infection and make you feel better. So hopefully you've learned a little bit about what a virus actually is. They're just a part of life, and they'll always be around with us and always changing.